Hi, this is Asim.
This is Sujoy.
This is Amrita.
And you're listening to Khandaan, a Bollywood podcast about the three main Khans of the Hindi film industry.
Amir,
Salman,
And Shara.
Hi, you're listening to Khandaan, a Bollywood podcast regular feed. Thank you so much for your support over the years. We now have a Patreon channel with bonus content and exclusive merch for those of you who would like to support us. Every dollar goes towards creating more and better content. Visit us at patreon.com/Khandaan podcast.
Cat is crying, one dog is barking.
in a way, a cat and a dog fighting is a good start for the fighter review, in a way. Okay. Hi and welcome to a new episode of Khandaan Podcast. My name is Asim Bernie and I'm joined with my lovely co-host Amrita and Sujoy. Hey Amrita, hey Sujoy.
Hey lovely people.
Hello.
I want to read, first of all, I want to start with, I'll just explain now. We last time we did a Patreon shout out, we realized there's good for Khandaan, but there's a lot of people supporting us on Patreon now. So it becomes a bit unwieldy and a not great experience to be reading over 100 names for everybody and thanking them. So we started this new format where if you're a Patreon, send us an email and we'll read it out. And that's kind of the Patreon shout out we're going to be doing. So the first one we got is from Danielle. And Danielle is saying, this is going to be a mushy love letter, so I apologize in advance. I had to go back and check the podcast app to see when it was that I first found Khandaan, and it was May of 2018 when you were all still You Podcast. I mostly listened on my headphones via the Apple Podcast app on my 5 a.m. jogs back then. But these days I listen through Patreon, usually while I cook dinner or grocery shop or clean the house or take a walk. In 2018, I was trying out a lot of Bollywood podcasts and you immediately became my favorite. Eventually the only one I actively follow. Sorry for the other podcast. I have to say. We stole the audience here. I got into Indian films almost by accident. I was a student of Japan at the time and had to take a required class on South Asia. So I picked the sociology of Indian cinema taught by Professor Lakshmi Srinivas, who wrote a book on Indian film audiences called Indian Cinema and the Active Audience. I hated musicals and I assumed that was all Bollywood was, but I figured it would be an easy class. To my surprise, I fell head over heels in love to the extent that I was living in Japan doing a research project on Japanese films and I couldn't stop watching SRK movies. I was obsessed. I devoured books and blogs on Indian film and then you guys came along. You filled in a lot of informational and cultural gaps for me. You are hilarious. I think she's talking about me. Down to earth. I think that's Sujoy. And so incredibly insightful. I think that's Amrita. Yeah. I have learned so much from you all and I do appreciate what you do. If it isn't obvious, I'm not an Indian or a South Asian and this passion of mine hasn't been easy to share with people that I know, though I have only been able to turn a few on to Indian films. You all really make me feel like there are people out there that share my interest on a deeper level. So thank you for everything. I don't have any advice or recommendations on things that I want to ask from you, but I just want to say that I'm here for all of the things. I appreciate not getting any advice too. That's also fun. Yeah. We're doing a good job, guys. We're doing a good job.
Everybody's just ready to give advice these days. So I'm really appreciative that this was such a heartfelt, wholesome letter to us.
Yeah.
Like, Danielle, this is honestly one of the best parts of this entire exercise, which is just getting to know people like you. It is so delightful. I'm so glad that you decided to take that easy class. I think, God bless Dr. Lakshmi Srinivas, wherever she might be, for taking that class and then sending you our way, because we just love people that are enthusiastic about the movies, especially the movies that we love. So it's just really great to hear from you. Thank you, Danielle.
Does it mean Khandaan A Bollywood Podcast is now officially in some sort of a curriculum?
No.
People are studying us?
No.
Our stupid rants.
I think we're gonna end up being like a Van Gogh, like only appreciated when we die,
Oh.
or at
Uh,
least, or if somebody
I
cuts their ear off while listening to us, one or the other.
I feel like the latter is more likely to happen. But if anybody wants us to sell out, we are ready and waiting. Feel free to reach out.
I mean, I think this episode we just want to talk about the big release of the weekend. Fighter came out, Siddharth's new movie. See how objective and calm I'm being here while I'm announcing this. I'm BBC. Starring Hrithik, Roshan, Anil Kapoor, and Deepika Padukone. Guys, you guys saw the movie. What did you guys think of Fighter?
So, a bunch of my girlfriends and I decided to go for this movie before the trailer came out. And it was one of those things where this was not a friend with whom I go to see movies. She just reached out and she was like, "Hey, it's gonna be Hrithik. It's gonna be like hot, sexy people. Like, don't you want to go see it?" So I was like, "Sure, fine." So we went, and I have to say, I have never seen that many women at the mall where we go to watch movies. I've never seen that many groups of women before gathered in one place. And also, I have never seen a more disinterested audience in any of the movies that I've seen so far in India. It was funny because it was just so disingenuous as a project. Like, you could see that there was zero conviction about anything that was unfolding on screen. And it was just one stupid thing after another. It got to a point where my friend that was sitting next to me, a character on screen would say the first half of one dialogue, and she would complete it for them because it was that, ghisapita, that you knew exactly what was going to happen. You knew what the plot points were going to be. You knew what the dialogues were going to be. You knew which character was going to die. You knew all of it, right? So it was just, I genuinely do not understand this project in any way, shape, or form. It's just a lot of people that have zero conviction in anything except the VFX just came together to make this movie, and they were like, well, this is what the audience likes, so we're just gonna do this checklist, and then I guess that will work. And it's just the worst kind of cinema. It's like Etch-a-Sketch, but with the movies. This was terrible. This was genuinely not even from something like, say, a Gadar 2 or something. The audience for that movie is passionate for it, right? They're enthusiastic for it. You can tell that the people who made it out of a certain kind of conviction. They believe what they're saying and what they're doing. I didn't feel that for either the audience or the filmmakers for this film.
Yeah, who is this movie made for exactly? And as you said, it was the most thanda reaction, because I went to see Thursday opening night, right? And usually those are the people who were absolutely enamored by the trailer and were looking forward to it, or people like me who knew what exactly to expect from it and went to check out the movie anyway. And it was completely dead on arrival. The audience reaction, even to the bits where it was trying to bait the audience emotional, beats, it wasn't working at all, man. And this movie has been made in collaboration, because before the movie begins, there's a long thank you list of all the collaborations that it has done with the Indian Air Force and the Army and everything. And it just feels like they threw all of that out of the window. This has been screened at the Rashtrapati Bhavan and everything for the Indian Air Force. And I think even the Indian Air Force would be embarrassed and sort of want to disown this movie in a way. The way it's trying to show stuff in how it feels like a small school of people runs the whole Indian Army and the Indian Air Force. And same with the Pakistani Air Force, there's like one fighter pilot running the whole operation. It's just like, it feels like a boxing match going on between Red Nose and Patty. And
Oh my God. When, so the Pakistani evil pilot is called Red Nose, like call sign Red Nose. And, in case you didn't get it, like his plane has the nose painted red, just so that you know. And literally, like the first time they called out his name and they were like, oh, here is the dread, Pakistani fighter pilot, Red Nose. And my friend and I, at the same time, zero coordination, at the same time, we just went, Rudolph, in the middle of the theater, because it was so stupid. I mean, okay, so this is going to be a very spoiler-filled review because Asim didn't watch it, Asim shouldn't watch it, and we are going to tell him everything. So if you actually do want to watch Fighter and you're like, oh no, I don't want spoilers, well, then just go watch the 2 Top Gun movies and then you'll be caught up. You'll be fine. Yeah. So basically the problem with this movie is that they obviously just saw, like Siddharth Anand saw the Top Gun movies and he was like, hey, we can do that. And it'll be like Krantikari for the Indian market because we haven't had a fighter plane movie. So they just basically stole everything, right?
yeah,
Sujoy?
but yeah, pretty much. Like everybody in Bollywood seems to have the same idea at the same time. You know, like remember when 3 Bhagat Singh movies came at the same time in the 2000s? It's pretty much like that with like the Kangana Tejas movie came out and then this fighter movie came out. And then there are a string of others that are coming out this year probably. I'm guessing Siddharth Malhotra is in one of them because he's pretty much on brand, the brand mascot of that sort of a cinema right now. Like it is ambitious in it's trying to do what Top Gun did, but like it has none of the underlying brotherhood element of it. Like at one point Hrithik is trying to have like this nostalgic flashback of the things that he did with his team and the times he spent where they are badly singing O Hamdam Sunyore over a bonfire, and like it's not believable at all. Like these people are like so closely knit and they would sacrifice their lives to save each other. It just feels like so badly like the whole brand of the cinema feels like a throwback to like the Tiranga, Rajkumar's, 90s patriotic movies. It feels like that from one beat to another. And there's like literally surrenders to the audience to make sense of it. And it's just like so sloppy, so sloppy.
The problem is that even its internal logic doesn't really play out because the whole thing is that they are in the Air Force, so they're flying planes. Now, the problem with this ghuske marenge kind of rhetoric when it comes to the Air Force is that the Air Force literally cannot ghuske maro because they are in the air. To ghuske maro, like, it makes sense if you're like a commando or something and then you have to like, get in there and like face, like if Tiger is fighting the Pakistanis or something, it makes sense because Tiger is a raw agent and therefore he will be in a situation where he has a face-to-face. But the whole point of the Air Force is that you don't have anything face-to-face. You're in the sky and you're bombing people and like leaving.
But see, like the plot armor is so thick. They have tried to bomb the main villain from a distance like 5 times and he still doesn't die, right? They blow up the whole village. They blow up all the barns. Everybody's dead. But this guy just comes up with his rocket launcher and starts firing. Like he does not die until like the last minute,
And then, of course, it wants to say that, so Deepika's character is basically some sort of stand-in for feminism. And she's like, in the sky, we are all equals. And I'm like, Behen, what? What are you even talking about? But she's like, no, like, nobody, like her father disapproved of her joining the Air Force, blah, blah, blah. And then it becomes this whole thing where like Hrithik obviously can't teach her how to fly, but there's like this point where he literally becomes Maverick and he gets sent to the Air Defense Academy to teach people. And his first thing that he does is coach this girl to land her plane because she's somehow doing her first solo flight, but she doesn't know how to like fly a plane apparently. And of course, it's like a woman, and like she needs Hrithik's help to like land the plane. And then Hrithik also finds Deepika's parents and convinces them to love her again and be proud of her. And I'm just like, what the heck is this going on?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like the Islamophobia and the Pakistan. It's like did you guys ever watch any of the propaganda movies that came out during the Second World War?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so everybody knows about the propaganda movies that the Germans were making because, Leni Riefenstahl and blah, blah, blah. But what a lot of people don't know is at the same time, the Allied forces were also making propaganda movies, right? Like Hollywood and the UK film industry, like they were putting out their own, like, the Nazis are evil, like we're all coming together and we're just... But the thing is that if you make those propaganda movies at a time of war, then they land a little bit differently. Versus like if you're making it right now where fine, like we're in a sort of Cold War situation with Pakistan, but we don't have any of that happening. Like there's no like war situation happening. Yeah. So everything that happens, like, like there's this point where there's a point where they have all these elaborate plans of how they're going to go bomb these places in Pakistan. And then Pakistan is like, yeah, well, sucks to be you because we've just turned the whole of Pakistan into a no-fly zone. So they're just like, okay, wo plan to chopper ho gaya, But then they find a way through it by insulting the Russians. Because they then like sneak over the border pretending to be Aeroflot. And they're like, we're flying Aeroflot and our navigation systems are down. Therefore, we thought we were in Dubai. And I'm just like, what? And then like...
Yeah, that whole comedic like side plot. It's like hilarious because it's so stupid. Oh my God. So that begins when the sneaky plane who is trying to bring the commandos in, posing as Aeroflot, gets in because the Pakistan has been declared as a no-fly zone, but the guy who is inspecting the skies, who is like at the Pakistani control center, he is scrolling TikTok. It's shown like that, like the level of incompetency that Pakistan's army and defense system has been shown in this movie is just downright comical. Like,
and then like once Red Nose comes and like obviously Red Nose loses in the end, but after Red Nose loses, it's like Pakistan is like, हाँ ठीक है, अब तो कुछ नहीं कर सकते, कर लो जो करना है, like like you can, अच्छा you wanna come and like bomb, ठीक है, bomb कर लो, like ठीक है.
सारी उम्मीदें रेड नोज से ही थी, like all were tied to Red Nose.
It's like when India sends that one athlete to the Olympics and like if they lose in the first round, sub medals चले गए, मतलब अब और कुछ नहीं होना. It's something like that. Like freaking there is an actual dialogue in this movie where the Pakistani army's chief, he says like, oh, इससे तो अच्छा जैश है, वो लोग कुछ तो कर लेते हैं. What the hell? Who wrote this?
You know who wrote this? The same guy that wrote Brahmastra.
And Kalank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hussain Dalal.
Hussain Dalal. Yeah. I saw, you sent me Haroon's video, right? Like the TikTok that after he watched it. And I feel worse for people like Haroon than I do for anybody else. Because you can see that he actually thought that this might be salvageable and that something good might happen because good people are involved. And genuinely, like, it gives me no pleasure to say this, but the cynic in me, I was not expecting anything good, and I got like literally what I expected to get. And I just feel bad for people like Haroon, basically, who thought that this could be better.
Yeah.
Basically, so Harun Rashid, our friend from BBC, me and him were talking about this movie before it came out, because obviously he's a listener of the show, and as during our preview episode, I was saying that I'm not excited for this movie, and we recorded that episode before the trailer had dropped for this, actually. So I was like, just something seems off. The marketing seems off. What are they like hiding and stuff like that? And then the trailer came out, and the trailer was filled with so much bigotry that there's no point for me to go and engage with this movie. Like, I knew that they were going to play it later in press, like, oh, it's not jingoism, it's just nationalism. It's our team against their team. But I think if Sunny Deol is doing this, or, a Vivek Agnihotri kind of filmmaker, or Kangana is doing this, I get it. They have their audience. They're doing what they're doing. It's fine. Both Hrithik and Deepika are top of their game, right? Sid Anand has come off of the biggest hits he's done. There was absolutely no reason to cater to this audience with these dialogues and then expect neutrality from everybody else. That is just a ridiculous claim. So even if I wanted to discuss this movie, if this was getting rave reviews now, box office was huge, I would watch it on streaming. I didn't want to contribute to the box office success of this movie. And I know you guys were going to watch it. I was 100% sure you were not going to like this movie. I know that, Amrita was like pretty positive about, the sexuality and the sensuality and hot people. But I knew that the message is going to be so haphazardly, badly written, and badly made, and so bigoted that even you wouldn't like it, And the other thing is also, I don't rate Siddharth as a filmmaker. I've never rated, I've said it so many times on the episode that I don't think he's a great filmmaker. He can do good action set pieces, right?
That's not even here.
And that's what I'm getting from the reviews, that even that is not on that level. But I feel even War had a lot of Pakistani bigotry in it, or Muslim bigotry in it, the way the Tiger Shroff's character is treated. And Pathaan I also had issues with Pathaan, but that is fine. Okay, I get it. It's Indian cinema. They're making it for an audience. Everybody can pick a team. But this was like when he started punching and Malik hum hai, I was like, I'm out, man. This is not for me. Anybody can go enjoy and watch it. That's fine. It's not for me.
It tries to dilute that bit by addressing that the like Hrithik has a particular line where he says like, we are not killing civilians. We are only attacking the militants who are taking refuge in Pakistan, right? But at the same time, with the same breath, in that same line where he gives this monologue of Jai Hind, he talks about the India occupied Pakistan bit, and which, like, what are you trying to say? Basically, it's so like all over the place. It does not even have a single voice. That's why, like, this review of ours is just ranting. It has no head or tail, because the movie is pretty much like that.
Yeah,
there is no like consistency in the message of this movie.
I think the real issue that I had with this movie after I watched it, and even before I watched it, like when I was watching the trailer, and I knew that what I'm about to say was going to happen. And then after I watched it with my friends, I was waiting to see if any of them would point it out, which they didn't. And I didn't think that they would. Because the thing with propaganda movies is that you think they are supposed to make you, or like brainwash you into believing a certain thing, or, perform a certain way. That is not true. Some propaganda movies are emotionally manipulative, and they do, press these buttons. Yes. But a lot of propaganda movies are just pushing the window. They're making it more normal
Yeah, it's
and
like playing the
more.
numbers game. If there are like 10 movies that come out with the same message, then that becomes the louder voice out of,
And here, what happens is it's not just that it's coming out. I mean, it's also the fact that this is Hrithik and Deepika, who are at the top of their game, really good-looking people who have no personal history of like
Yeah.
Islamophobia or
Exactly.
like any of that stuff. They're not
That's why it
bigots.
makes it worse for me. That's
Yeah.
why it makes it worse for me. And the thing is, what you're saying about pushing, I think, like, I had again this, like I've said this before. It's in a way, it's important for me to watch this movie and give my perspective on it as a Pakistani, as a Muslim, to kind of say. I just didn't want to do it even for this movie, right? But I would just suggest go to Wikipedia and read just what happened, right? Like just Wikipedia, not like go to a Pakistani site or their opinion. Just go to Wikipedia, read what actually happened. If you have forgotten, there was tea involved. There were like, there was a lot of stuff involved in that. And it was a lot of information, a lot of misinformation. Just go to Wikipedia, read what happened. I knew this movie was just filled with lies, and the power of cinema is such, like, to give you another example, think of David Fincher's The Social Network, right? That movie is filled with inconsistencies, but it's seeped into the collective brain thinking this is what actually happened.
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook because he got dumped by his girlfriend. It's literally a meme, right? And cinema kind of solidifies their version of what actually happened, even when we can know and read that didn't happen. And I think that's what The Fighter is trying to do. It's basically brainwashing us into thinking that this is exactly what happened, or some sort of intent. It's almost like America did with Rambo or stuff like that, to change the narrative to make you feel that they actually won Vietnam when they actually never did, right? And that I don't want to be a part of. And I also want to thank a lot of people. They reached out to me on Patreon and stuff like that. It's like, this is going to be a tough watch for Asim, So there were a lot of caring messages about that, and I appreciate that. But I'd already made up my mind that I was not going to be watching this movie. So
I know we had this conversation where you were saying that, something like you watch a lot of stuff that are against your morals, and you were like, should I maybe watch this? Like you were having that internal discussion with yourself. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I really hope you don't, because that was a lesson that I had to learn with, like, I've never seen Kashmir Files. I've never watched A Kerala Story, because I know how I will feel having watched it and knowing like the lies that it is trying to propagate. And I'm like, I don't need that shit. Like, I don't need to watch it to know that this is bullshit and that this is stupid. Like, I know that already, and there's no need for me to do that to myself.
And the thing is, either you watch it and then you feel bad, or you feel a certain way, or you talk about it, and the reaction is basically that Akshay Kumar meme of Jalina Teri, so Barnaul lagao, like, you got triggered now. And I mean, and what you're saying, Amrita, is like, I don't agree with any of the things that Animal as a movie is making either, right? Like the statements Animal is making, I don't agree with any of that, but I'm still engaging with the content, right? But this, I just didn't. And also just like, I really truly believe that there's a global Islamophobic monster around us at the moment, and it hits you in different ways.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to get hit again. Like, it was fine. Like, it was a bad week, people. Like, this week was again a bad week for us,
When you say like Islamophobia, though, like it's trying to, again, Siddharth is such a cop out. Like, it's like Islamophobia, you can't say that because we've got a Muslim hero here from India who's trying to defend his nation. He's the first one to die.
That's what they do with Indian police force too, now. That's the same thing they do with Rohit Shetty's, which again, I also didn't watch, But again, I know the playbook. I've known the playbook. Like, the thing is, like, even in Britain or in America, like, somebody doesn't have to say anything racist for me to know that he is a racist. I can see it already. And you can play whatever language bingo you want to play with me. You're going to do whatever whataboutery you want to do. I'm too old for that shit, it doesn't work on me.
No, but the good Muslim bit in this movie is probably, I think that's even worse than the whole Pakistani bit, to be absolutely honest, because what this movie is saying, and it's not like an invention of this movie. It is like Asim says, this is part of the playbook. But basically, there is a good Muslim and then there is a bad Muslim, right? The bad Muslim is the Kashmiri militant that we see. Like, the movie begins with this Kashmiri militant who
He records a video message and says, "मैं तो जन्नत में ऐश कर रहा हूँगा," when you get this video.
And he says, ek to, like, he's talking as if he just came out of like a chawl in Bombay. Secondly, he says Alhamdulillah, and it's like he's never heard that word before in his life. They basically just told him right before he hit record, and he's like, Alham what?
It's like me pronouncing Manushi Chillar.
And he keeps saying it, like every single time he comes on screen, he keeps saying it, and I'm just like, brother, like why? Like, bas kajal hi laga dete, we would have known that you were a militant. Yeah, so there's a bad Indian Muslim, and the bad Indian Muslim is one who, like does things for his faith. Then there is the good Indian Muslim, which is the guy that dies, right? And his parents. And the reason why, they don't say it in so many words, but you see, like, like what happens, like at this guy's, Bashir is his name, Bashir's funeral. And it's a very extended funeral sequence, okay? Like it just goes on for a long time. There's a song.
Yeah, it's again trying to do it's kind of like a throwback to Madhavan dying in Rang De Basanti, and the whole Luka Chupi thing, where that was the gut punch because that's a result of all the other things that were happening. And here it's just a bait.
Wait, I have to tell you what happened to Bashir. So Bashir was supposed to come back to India in some sort of like prisoner exchange or whatever. But of course, like the Jaish militant who was basically his captor kills him, and he's like, and in a later scene, he's like, do you know how I killed him? And he's like talking about like, maine uske tukde kiye. And then all of a sudden he's like, but wo kambakt, even then he kept saying Jai Hind. So maine Bharat Mata, the Jaish militant in Pakistan is like, maine Bharat Mata a flag. I'm just like, why would this Pakistani guy say Bharat Mata? But anyway, but he says, I took the flag of Bharat Mata and then I set it on fire in front of him. And then he conceded. And I'm just like, what?
But can I say, Amrita, that is the incendiary part, right? Nobody would say Bharat Mata, but adding Bharat Mata hurts more than it, like, no Pakistani would say it that way, right? But you're inventing a scenario that will be hurtful to Indian sentiments. So even for Indians, it's offensive, right? Like it doesn't make any sense.
So if you put yourself in the shoes of these writers, they are inventing ways of how a Pakistani would insult India in their head, right? It's that imagination. It's just like more you than what the dude.
But just going back to the funeral scene, you are told that, Bashir's parents, they're good Muslims because not only did their son die for the motherland, but also these are, their final thing is not them, praying to Allah or like, taking part in any sort of like religious ritual while their son is being laid to rest. The final image that you have of them standing by the graveside of their fallen son is them saluting the flag.
Yeah.
So these are good Indian Muslims because they put country over faith. That's the imagery.
What else I've also noticed, and this has been kind of like coming into my brain a few years now, and I see it now more and more, especially because Siddharth is so unsubtle in his filmmaking, is that a good Muslim, according to Indian content now, is somebody who does not engage with his faith whatsoever. He has to his faith needs to disappear except for his name And usually he's also drinking very quickly. And that is one of those codings that he is the good guy. So in Pathaan, you have Rubai drinking whiskey shots. But even in like something like Kho Gaye Hum Kahan, where the Siddharth is a Muslim comedian, which again, no way do you see him pray or say the kalma or even say an inshallah, but you do see him drinking with his dad, right? And I'm pretty sure that's also what's happening in Fighter. But the villain, as soon as he comes up, it's like kalma on the background and Surah Fatiha, and they're praying 5 times a day, and that is the bad Muslim. And the one is like, and he has to probably die or suffer or stuff like that, So, and even a movie maker like, Zoya Akhtar, or like even like Gully Boy, I would say to a certain degree, there's no, like, Ranveer is not visibly Muslim. You see him once pray in like for one sequence, like very short. But if you have to be a good Muslim, you have to erase everything that you can about your religious identity. Otherwise, you're a bad guy.
That was actually something that I noticed particularly in this film, because there is a scene where it's a nothing burger of a scene, which made me like really pay attention to it, because I was like, why is this scene in here? Where Hrithik is just like thinking about something or something. And then Bashir comes up to him and says, oh, like, you're not drinking. I'll make you a drink. And Hrithik is like, oh no, like, I don't need it. I can fix it myself. And Bashir is like, well, I can make a drink for a friend, right? And then he like goes and he gets him like a drink. And it just made me like, made me think like, why is Bashir? I actually thought that maybe they're going to do something interesting and make Bashir the double agent, because that would actually have been like something that would have taken some sort of guts. But they didn't. Like, it was just showing that Bashir is a liberal, basically. That's the whole point of him going and getting him a drink. And they also had a double agent in the movie, Zarina, which is like a guy in a burqa, and I genuinely thought that when the burqa, like when he lifts the burqa at the end, he would be like somebody that we all knew, like it was like Tiger Shroff or something.
Who is this guy?
Some random guy is just like, ab to main nahi kar sakta. I was just like, why? Like, nothing about this movie made any sense except for the fact that it was clearly furthering an agenda that I did not know that Hrithik and Deepika subscribed to.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and it was just like, it's funny because like, as Asim was saying, like the only reason I was interested in this film because I was like hot people doing like sexy stuff. And there was like no sexy stuff. That was like the other thing. Like there was like,
it's very abruptly sexy though. Like there's stuff happening and then the song comes in out of nowhere and they are being sexy in the song pretty much out of context for like 2-3 minutes and then go back to random shit.
So they cut one of the songs. The song that they play early on when they're just sort of like flirting in the mirror, that song is being cut in India. And the other song comes in the post-credit scene, which, Ishq Jaisa Kuch, that comes after the credits. But it was just like bizarre. Like, what was the whole point?
Yeah. So I read this review by Rahul Desai from Film Companion, and I just want to read because I think he's written it very like on point. It says you can't call it propaganda because it is loosely inspired by real events. You can't call it inaccurate because the disclaimer says it's a work of fiction. You can't call it mediocre because it's a tribute. You can't call it post-truth because it's Indian. Yeah. That this is what this movie is like. I guess, as Amrita said, propaganda movies also are like propaganda movies especially are informed by the political situation in which those movies, that era existed. And India, especially post-independence, we've had our movies absolutely informed and influenced by the politics of the nation, be it from nation building exercises post-independence to the emergency era movies where there was a lot of, man against the system, an angry young man. And now we are in a post-truth, right-wing sort of an era of politics in India, and where these all jingoricals, as we call it, or straight up fascist movies that propagate the message. And we are sitting in 2024, where obviously it's election year in India, funded by Viacom 18, which is a Geo company. Siddharth Anand's, is this Mariflex's first movie?
Yeah, it's his first movie, and it's supposed to be part of some sort of aerial-based universe that he's creating.
Yeah, so
Wow.
aerial-based universe.
But I don't know, like, how many times he's going to attack Pakistan, though. Does India not fight any other countries? Like,
No. No.
So it does feel like, from a Siddharth Anand's perspective, it feels like he's raising capital for his future projects in a way, and the powers that be are happy to fund it. That's the only point of exercise of this movie. It's just
I think the first few days, even the box office wasn't really looking that good. I think it's picked up now.
I don't know about that.
But, I also just think, people just want entertainment. And, let me read, a few of the comments we got from Patreon, because obviously my opinion is different from, an outsider's opinion. So I just wanted to kind of read them. And a lot of people did enjoy it. We have Viral, who says, "This is one of the movies that I say marketing did the disservice to. This movie is awesome. I think best from Siddharth Anand yet. I was glued to the screen, and I'm hoping word of mouth get this movie going. Hrithik shows he is capable of giving his best if character is written right. Can't wait to hear your take." Lana says, "From a movie standpoint, the pro-India message was so in your face. Asim in particular were likely to have strong mixed feelings. Looking forward to the discussion on the podcast." I just want to apologize also to people that were hoping for my opinion, that I didn't engage and didn't watch this movie. I know you obviously expect, all of us to review the movie, but honestly, I just did not care for it. I didn't want to engage with it whatsoever. NK says, Nim says, "Just saw Haroon's review on TikTok and it's tempered my expectations. I'm going on Tuesday, cheap day, to watch it." I do go watch Haroon's review, though. I know it's on TikTok. I don't know if it's available on Instagram too, but my friend goes through some things, man. It's crazy. It's and I didn't want to go through that. I'll be honest. I saw his face and I was like, I don't want to be what he's gone through now. So, I'll read one more from Devansh. "My friend, who was a huge HR fan, dragged me to watch it. I was not at all interested in yet another jingoistic movie, to be honest. I thought it would be Gadar 2 type, but surprisingly it wasn't. It's a one-time watch for the ones who like this kind of movie. Plus you get to see HR, DP, Anil Kapoor, and cool aerial shot. It wasn't great, but the bar is so low these days that it left me pleasantly surprised. I would still rate Laksha, Shershah, Razi, and Uri above it, but much better than Satyam Vijayate, Gadar, and Mission Majnus of this world." The CGI was decent. This is from Mahin. And then Tushar says, "I enjoyed the action sequences. The whole nationalistic blame Pakistan ghar mein ghus ke undertones kind of stopped me from enjoying the movie. Maybe I'm reading too much into it or forcing my own biases, but it kind of felt like the producers were hoping this whole nationalistic momentum would help this film. And maybe it does." Yeah, I think Tushar, I think he did it really well there. What they were hoping for. I don't know how successful they are.
No.
And I don't know, I just feel also like the marketing again and the promotion seems weird. The vibe seems off. You cannot tell me that the vibe seems super excited or stuff like that for this movie.
No, I'll tell you, there are a lot of movies that are not meant for me, right? There are movies that I'll watch and I'll be like, well, I am not the intended target audience for this. And that was the same for this. I was watching it with 4 other women, and one of them had never watched any of the Top Gun movies, and all the action sequences were brand new for her. And she was like, wow, the action sequences are really great. They're just very imaginative or whatever. All of us agreed that it was a shit movie, but like, like that one particular person was like, this is like really great action sequences. And I was like, well, you are the intended target audience for this movie because it's meant for people who want to see something that they've never seen before in a Bollywood film, which is like aerial action or whatever. But I can't respect a movie unless it is meant to be a movie rather than like a VFX reel that is sort of held together with sticker tape and Islamophobia. Like, I can't respect that, There's like I was able to say that, like Animal is like one of the top movies of last year or whatever. And I said it because like there was a conviction to that movie, I disagree with it. I look down upon it. But I can see it. I can feel that, that's how bad Fighter is, where I am favorably looking upon Animal compared to Fighter. Like, that's how bad it is.
Yeah.
I would even go to the length of saying, like, this is a big aside. Like, if you put aside the whole propaganda that it's trying to propagate against Pakistan and all the message, and imagine this and like entire exercise of telling who is the villain is, say, probably like North Korea, Russia in this movie, right? For a second, let's just imagine. Even if I consider that, the movie doesn't hold up without even that. Like, if the heroes are fighting against them, there's this whole emotional arc of Hrithik Roshan as Patty, of his past and why he's the way he is. He's arrogant and he does not engage with women, why he is like that, and his sort of past story with Anil Kapoor and how it gets resolved. And then Deepika's story. And again, the story about the brotherhoods of this team that some of them knew each other from before and how their interaction is and why they would lay down their lives for each other. None of those emotional beats. We've seen Top Gun Maverick, right? We expected to be wowed by the IMAX sequences of the action sequences. But what we took out from that movie was the emotional arc of the guilt that's killing Maverick, right? And then how he goes to raise the son of the friend that died in the first movie. And there is no sort of mastery. Like, Bollywood directors should be that, right, in telling emotional arcs. When Sid Anand is such a front runner or the torchbearer of that sort of cinema that he grew up on, the Manmohan Desais of the world, and he's not able to deliver on the emotional arc of this movie. I felt nothing, when it came to any of those emotional arcs resolutions. So
that's because like nothing is ever Hrithik's fault, Like, that's basically the whole thing about this film is that, like Hrithik basically, he gets everybody around him
killed
at like such a rate that even the Pakistanis know that they can count on him to like head them with the ambush. They're just like, we just poke him and then he'll just lead everyone to us and then we can just kill everyone.
It's like in Chak De when Komal Chotala never passes.
Yeah.
It's something like that. Oh, Patty just gets everybody in his team killed.
But then the movie is just like, actually, it's not Patty's fault, huh? Like, Patty's not, like, Patty to acha hai. Like, aisa nahi hai. And you're like, then what did we just watch for like 3 freaking hours? It's just 3 freaking hours of Patty getting everyone around him killed. And then it's like Anil Kapoor saying, Zindagi bhar, I was blaming you, but actually you were just doing your job. And I was like, Zindagi bhar? Like, what are you talking about?
And what was the whole bit about Talat Aziz's cameo as Patty's father and this is calling him Shammi? He's the only one calling him Shammi.
The funny part is like, he showed up.
So random.
No, he showed up on screen and my friend that was sitting next to me went, is that Talat Aziz? What? And I was like, I don't know either. Like, don't look at me. I don't know why Talat Aziz is his dad.
Kashmiri representation, I suppose.
I think it's interesting because like this Top Gun comparison has happened a lot, right? This is the first shorthand people go to when they talk about Fighter. But neither of the Top Guns ever really mentioned clearly who the enemy is, first of all. And I think use Top Gun as a template, right? Like what kind of movie making, because it has a political background and stuff like that. But I would say the peak of that kind of filmmaking is not Top Gun, it's actually Rocky IV, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
America versus Russia, man-on-man fighting. I mean, that is the template of, Cold War movie making. I just want to read you the last speech that Rocky says when he finishes the fight, as to kind of finish up and round up this episode. I won't do the accent, I won't do an impression, but
we all can change.
During this fight, I've seen a lot changing. The way you feel about me, and in the way I felt about you. In there are two guys killing each other, but I guess that's better than 20 million. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if I can change, you can change, everybody can change.
Yeah.
That is movie making. That is a hopeful message. And I'm so saddened that a team with Anil Kapoor, Hrithik, and Deepika could not even aim to be Rocky IV. That's the sadness of the state of these kind of movies at the moment.
Rocky IV is a great movie, by the way.
All Rockies are great except for 5. Like, it's like legit good.
My takeaway from this movie is the review given by the guy who was sat next to me, and once the movie finished, he said, "Bipasa ke marad ne bahut acha kaam kiya."
He's in there?
Yeah, he plays a character called Taj.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could recognize him from a lineup, to be honest. I don't know who his husband is.
I think his name is Karan Singh Grover. He's made a few horror movies with Bipasha.
Okay. Good. Now he's made a horror movie with Hrithik. Final thoughts, guys? Amrita, final thoughts on the fighter, right? Not the fighter.
I mean, save yourselves, you guys. Like, you'll do what you want to do, but like, honestly, this isn't it. Like, it genuinely is not it.
Sujoy?
शेर मतलब खोल दिए एकदम.
शेर मर गए.
I did not like it. That's my take. If it was not obvious from what we have spoken for the last hour or so on Fighter, I did not like it.
Good. I'm glad I didn't watch it. I'm really, really happy. Okay. I think this is it for this episode. Join us next week again for the stuff we watched over the break and a few trailers and things that came out. I'm more excited to talk about this than what we just talked about. But yeah, Amrita, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at AmritaIQ.
Sujoy?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at 9E3K. And you can follow Khandaan Podcast on all our socials at Khandaan Podcast.
Sign up to Patreon from $1 to support our work. And if you have thoughts, if you have any comments, drop us an email at youpodcasting@gmail.com. Also sign up to our newsletter. The link will be in the show notes. And thank you for listening. And we'll be back with a new episode soon.